happens when you balance your finances, career, and your well-being? There's no limit to what you can achieve. This is Finance, Fitness, and Finesse, a dimensional wealth podcast hosted by JaeVic, where building wealth with wellness isn't just a goal, it's a way to live intentionally. In a world flooded with information overload and misleading highlight reels, F3 is your podcast to help you realize you're not woke, you're broke, and how to change that in your favor. If you're looking to elevate your wealth, well-being, and discover the power of balance, tune in to learn why money matters, but wellness counts.
There's emotions around money, and there's no way around it, and we have to understand those emotions.
Hey Finessers! Welcome to another episode of Finance, Fitness, and Finesse, where we build your wealth with wellness 5 reps at a time. I'm your host, JaeVic, and you're not woke, you're broke if you don't lock into this episode where industry experts share their insights on building wealth, managing stress, and living a balanced life. Before we get started, help your lifelong learner community grow by leaving a rate and review for the show on the homepage, or share this episode with someone you care about. And if you're looking for key resources and interactives to deepen your journey, head over to JaeVic.com. In this episode of F3, I sit down with Tyrone White, an accredited financial counselor, certified financial therapist, and a leader in the world of financial wellness. Tyrone brings a unique, trauma-informed approach to money that connects the dots between financial literacy and emotional well-being. With a background in counseling, therapy, and behavioral finance, he supports individuals and families as they overcome financial stress, navigate difficult money decisions, and build habits that create confidence and peace. We'll cover topics like how emotions shape financial behavior, building confidence after financial setbacks, the unique dynamic between money and the military, and how to align your goals with your values. Whether it's addressing debt without shame, setting goals with emotional clarity, or breaking old money patterns, this conversation is all about equipping you with the insight and inspiration to grow in both wellness and wealth. All right, let's get into it.
One, two, get down.
Tired of saying, "I'll do it tomorrow," feeling burnt out, overwhelmed, and consumed by decision fatigue? Dimensional Wealth helps turn intentions for a goal into action as you build wealth with wellness 5 reps at a time. In a world that values hustle over healing, momentum matters more than motivation. Through specialized resources, coaching, and intentional programming, Dimensional Wealth helps you take the first step and makes it possible to live a life of your design. It's time to live life on purpose, not autopilot. Design your blueprint for lifestyle fitness and holistic abundance at JaeVic.com. Link in the show notes. What is your first money memory, or a memory where your relationship with money changed?
My big moment where money changed for me was I was in Air National Guard doing military stuff, and I stopped. My wife's active duty, so she decided to stay in, make it a career. I decided to leave. She decided to make a career. And when she made that decision, I didn't realize how much of an impact it would make on me now that I'm transitioning from a military member myself to a military spouse. And the big thing that hit me was when we were moving around, I would lose my job and I wouldn't have income, but I had bills. I had debt, I had car payment. I think at the time it was almost $500, which was crazy at the time. And I just couldn't figure out how I was going to pay these bills. I said, I don't have an income. I don't have a job. I got to get the kids in daycare. And all these financial situations and pressures were happening. And I knew there had to be a better way. All I was doing is just doing what I seen my parents do up until that point. At this time, I was in my mid-20s, and I was just trying to just do whatever I saw was being done at the time. And I was getting bad financial advice. I was getting financial advice was, hey, you can put it on a credit card and then file for bankruptcy. I was getting all types of stuff. Don't worry about the struggle. I said, no, I don't want to do that. There's got to be a better way. So I started just doing research on my own, reading books, going online, watching YouTube. And that's what got me into finance. And when I realized the power of having financial education, when I understood that, that's when it just changed everything for me. When you fully start understanding finance, you can make big decisions in your life where you can start to live a better life. That's what changed. That was like my biggest moment.
Thank you so much for sharing the vulnerability of having to be flexible and adaptable, especially in your 20s during that time. Man, and I knew a piece of that story from one of our previous conversations where you had told me about your self-educated personal finance journey that you went on, and it gave me courage at the time. I'm continuing my personal finance journey in my 20s, and we live in the information era. So, I mean, there's tons of information coming at us. And if I've understood anything from you, it's that we have to develop our own money strategies, right? Like, there's no one right way to play the money game.
Absolutely. When I was doing my deep dive into financial education, I would read these books and it would say do one thing, and I read another book and say to do a different thing. And I'm like, there's all these different ways of doing personal finance. And that's when I realized it's personal finance. There's good ways of doing things, and there's general principles, and you can find a consensus on things to do, but you can tailor it towards what's best for you along the journey. And you have to know yourself to tailor a good plan for yourself.
Amen. Amen. I mean, it's very uncomfortable. And a personal question that I want to ask you from your journey of being a spouse that was adaptable and moved around, in support of your wife's trajectory and losing your jobs repeatedly. I'm wondering what your experience was around the societal norms or expectations of a man's role in a relationship as a provider. And maybe you had to flip the script on that. I don't know what you grew up around. Just what comes up for you with that question?
Thanks for asking that question. It's something I like to share because you don't hear about a military spouse from a male perspective as often. So I'll give you a story. Actually, I'll give you a story. I went to a job interview one time, and this was when I was living in DC. And the person said, hey, what brings you to DC? I said, my wife's military. So that brings me to DC because she's at a base locally. And he goes, oh, are you in the military? I said, no, I'm not in the military. She's in the military. I was at one time, but I got out. And he goes, oh, so you're dependent, huh? And he said it like really derogatory. And he goes, yeah, you're relying on your wife, right? You follow your wife around. And he said like really, and this is during a job interview. Yeah, this is during a job.
Oh
So
my
I
God.
was like, I'm not dependent on my wife to survive. Like, what are you implying here? So it was a really uncomfortable interview, especially when you're trying to support your wife and her aspiration, her goals, and it's kind of like setting you back. And it's definitely the roles kind of switch what society is normally used to. It's tough because even my family, I had family members like, oh, what are you gonna do for work? What are you gonna do for a job? And you have that pressure of being a male, you're supposed to be a provider and all this other stuff. But I started to realize that I just had to make some changes to make it more flexible. And that's what finance came along at the perfect time for me because with personal finance, you could do a lot of stuff remote. So every time we moved now, I didn't have to lose my job. And when I was learning to help myself, I realized that I can learn it enough to educate other people to help them along too. And then that's when I ended up making this a career. So it just worked out both ways. It ended up working out for me to help myself, but then it ended up being something that I can learn to help out others as well.
That's where the most impactful and effective missions come from. I mean, I'm finding that from my experience in I was trying to just make sure that the amount I had in my bank account didn't match my rent that month and evolving in my personal finance journey and then bringing in the elements of therapy into it to help my lifestyle and be fulfilled and balanced. And as I work these practices and applying in how I can work with others, but it starts with the mission that you develop for yourself. Because if we don't take care of ourselves, we can't take care of the people we love. So I appreciate you breaking that down because on my podcast, I like to be very inclusive of all people, different ages, different demographics. And there's a big movement right now in regards to the transference of wealth into being held more by females, but not a lot of people or podcasts that I listen to. Like, it can be so one-sided, and I'm like, let's not leave the men behind, or like not acknowledge the experiences that you have to go through as you work to adapt and embrace new strategies and working together with your wife, not like there's some sort of hierarchy. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely right. I guess, well, as we move forward as a society, we have to realize that it's not just the financial aspect. For example, my wife relies on me on maybe emotional stability, right? Maybe I'm just a rock emotionally. I don't have to make all the money. I can provide other things in a family dynamic, in a relationship where it doesn't have to be just financial all the time. And I think we need to embrace that we all have different roles in a relationship, but we still equal. So we can have different roles, but we're still equal in the relationship. It's not just a financial aspect type thing.
Oh yeah, spot on. I
Yeah.
mean, that's exactly what I work within my philosophy of being wealthy in all dimensions of life. Not just wealthy in our finances, but how can you pour into the emotional wealth of your household and your
Hmm.
relationships? How can you pour into the mental, the physical, the spiritual? Like, it definitely all works together. And I definitely want to make sure our guests know a little bit about your background, Tyrone. So, a bit of a military background, and I'm very excited to get into some questions there
Yeah.
because veterans face a very unique path in regards to the financial space.
Well, I was in the military and I dealt with challenges. I think a big challenge that people deal with is you try to figure out, hey, what do you want after the military? What do you want? What are the aspects that you're looking for? And I was kind of just looking for more stability. The career field I was in the military was security forces. So you'll work holidays, you work odd hours, Panama shifts. It's very similar to MPs and stuff. So it wasn't like an office job where I wasn't getting the holidays off like other members were. So I said, hey, I want just more time to myself, more time with my family. So I decided I said I could have switched career fields in the military, but I didn't want to. I just said, hey, you know what? Let me get out and let me get a career in the civilian sector. But something I also want to talk about with military and transitioning from military life into civilian life, and this just in general, is I see a lot of military members that don't take advantage of the things that they're eligible for. And sometimes that has to do with pride. I had a lot of people that I was friends with, close with, and maybe they wouldn't get VA disability. They're like, I'm good. I don't need disability. I'm not disabled. But meanwhile, their back hurts all the time. They're limping sometimes and stuff like that. And it's just a lot of pride that stops them from getting the help and the services that they're eligible for. So I just asked that a lot of military members put some of their pride aside and go ahead if you're eligible for something, utilize those things that you're eligible for. Any discount. If it's schools, there's a lot of schools out there that if you decide to go to school and your GI Bills ran out and you have to pay for out of pocket, there's a lot of schools that give discounts. I just want to encourage a lot of veterans, people transitioning out of the military or people retiring to just utilize the resources that are out there because there's so many resources, and I just don't want their pride getting away from getting the services that they deserve.
That is a really good point. Yeah, pride getting in the way, stigmas, stereotypes, especially around the term of disability. I mean,
Yeah.
even in the mental health space, we're trying to still get past you don't have to be ultra depressed and suicidal to seek mental health care. Maybe it's just to work with someone to strategize so that you can maintain the lifestyle you desire and reach different goals that you may have barriers behind. And, if you're brave enough and courageous enough to serve our country, I certainly am with you in advocating to challenge those stigmas that you may have, those limiting beliefs that you may have in your brain as to what is okay for you to accept for the service that you provided to our country. And I'm completely new to this topic, so I'm super interested. When you're in the military, are you guys educated on the different programs and like VA loans and things you can take out, like maybe towards the end of service, or how does that work?
Yeah, they do. They have briefings. There a lot of out processing briefings, things that you can go to when you're leaving. They have one good program that I think it started in 2011. It's called Skill Bridge. It helps military members transition from the military life to civilian life and you get jobs. There's so many things that you could do. But what I see happen a lot of times, for example, you can have financial counseling in the military. Many installations, military installations have financial counseling. But what happens is military members don't seek out some of these resources even while they're in because they're concerned, especially while they're in, they're concerned about it being reported back to the units of things they're doing wrong or the mishaps that happen financially. So they won't go to seek some of these resources. Like there's also mental health things that you get help with while you're in the military, but there's a concern that it can get reported back to your commander or your first sergeant or something. So they don't seek out a lot of these resources while they're in there. And that's something I hope improves over time that people can get help without the fear of some type of negative repercussions from seeking out this help that they need.
That's powerful. I definitely hope that shift can start to happen too. So, to make sure I'm understanding you, it sounds
Mhm.
like the record that someone may have on them in regards to maybe financially, it could be a mistake or whatever, or even mentally, like anything that's on their record, there's a hesitation as to whether they can actually go and engage with the help without it coming back to them negatively in regards to ranks, socially, etc.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. There could be repercussions, and because of that, there's a lot of fear around it. And the military is trying to do better about that not happening, but it still does. And there's still that fear. I mean, when I first got into this, I didn't understand because there were some people that were in the civilian sector advertising to military members to get help. And I didn't understand. I said they can get it for free. Why are military members paying for it when they can get it for free? But they were paying for it because they didn't want to give back to the unit that they were having financial problems. So they wouldn't have paid 100, 200, $300 for financial counseling outside or mental health help outside because they didn't want to be on the military installation and get back to the unit. So much so that they're willing to pay for it. Yeah.
Dang, that's backwards.
Yes, it is. It is. Something needs to change. It really is. It's something that needs to change.
Absolutely. Well, that's what this conversation is for. So, anybody listening within the military, anyone who has like influence, hear this. Being able to just talk about it. Like, we are social beings. We learn socially, we learn through communication. And there's such an awkward stopping point that happens when it's like, well, I know there's help here, and I know you guys are saying this to me, but I also see an unspoken social barrier that is actually stopping me from getting the help that is being provided. So then it comes down to, well, it's military, school programs, government, state, like whatever it is. I've seen this trend even as a social worker of the promotion of programs publicly, like saying we have these programs, we have these things, and it looks good, right, on headlines and things, but people aren't engaging with it due to the elephant in the room no one really wants to address. So that's crazy that's happening in the military too a little bit.
Yeah, there's a lot of people, not just financial, but also mental help. They need some help, and unfortunately, even suicide rates are going up, even though we're not at war right now, and a lot of it has to do with mental health things. But
Hmm.
people are concerned about seeking it. So we have this trend where suicides are going up in the military, but we're not even at war anymore. There's not as many people going over to the Middle East to fight, but we're seeing suicide rates go up. And it's because a large part is because people are fearful to get help in the military.
That's heartbreaking. You're gonna make me be like, I need to go in the military and like I need to help. I need to like place
Yeah.
my services there. Wow. Yeah, it's heavy and definitely it's very important for there to be a safe space that can be established externally because once people can get to that point, I mean, even I'll be transparent, I've gotten to that point in my life. It feels like your own head isn't a safe space. So, I mean, if you're out of reach to really help yourself internally, that's why it's so important to have those external factors. So hopefully things can really start to move in that in a proactive direction, right? And
Hmm.
from what I understand, military life can be extremely unpredictable and high stress, much like entrepreneurship and navigating different financial challenges. Tyrone, how did your time in the service prepare you to stay calm under pressure and strategize effectively in your life and career?
What it taught me was, first of all, is get uncomfortable with being uncomfortable. I think that's a big part that when you stay at home or you're young, you're comfortable, you're in your hometown, you're around people you know every day. But when you get thrown into the military and you're around people you don't know, you're taking showers, with people and stuff, you're like very uncomfortable, but you start getting comfortable being uncomfortable or things out of the norm. So that military helped me with that, just being flexible, adjusting, being part of a team, working with people. That was big from all different parts of sometimes the world. We had people from different places. You get people from Africa, all different countries in Asia coming to the military, and they're sharing their experiences with you. That was great, and so you get to work with different cultures. And yeah, it's just you learn to do difficult things. Like even though things are difficult, you learn to just overcome it. That was a big thing the military taught me. And patience. I was very impatient. I want to say I'm from New York, and I lived in New York City and upstate New York, and I was very impatient. And the military taught me patience, which is a very important skill to have. So that was something they taught. Hurry up and wait is a real thing in the military. They get you to hurry up, and then you stand there for an hour waiting for something to start. So that's something the military taught me as well, patience.
Whew, yeah, resilient patience. I feel like we
Yeah.
do not have much patience left in our culture these days, so that's
Yeah.
refreshing to hear. I very much enjoy meeting people who are in the finance space and have brought in the elements of emotions and behaviors and social dynamics into their work. You're an accredited financial counselor, also certified to practice financial therapy. How do you like to balance the finance and emotional therapy side of your work with how you engage with your clients?
I'll start with this because this is how I got into it. First of all, I didn't even know financial therapy was a thing. When I first started personal finance, I didn't even know it was a thing. So I was looking at different certifications or credentials I could get to help me become a professional in the space. So I went with the AFC because I wanted to work with budgets. I wanted to work with a lot of people in the middle class or people with lower incomes. And it seemed like that was a good area to start with. So I did that and I was learning the materials and I was big into the numbers. Like I was big into numbers. I was working with people. But I noticed when I first started, I was not, I was able to provide information, helpful information, but I wasn't connecting with people. They weren't changing their behaviors. I'm like, you say these numbers, I'll give the budgets, I'll show them, and it just wasn't connected. I wasn't making big changes. I'm like, what's going on here? So then I realized that it's more than numbers. There's emotional stuff. There's emotionals, there's behaviors, there's habits. And I said to myself, what can I do to teach myself the things I need to learn to help people actually make change? And I realized that I needed to learn more about humans and their behaviors and habits. And that's when I came across FTA, Financial Therapy Association, and they have a certification called CFT, Certified Financial Therapist. And I was like, okay, so I started reading, learn about different information, and I start blending the two. I start realizing, oh, okay, this person is doing these things because it's a habit. Let's say someone that likes dining out, because that's a big thing. It's a big category. Spending money, dining out, whether it's DoorDash or stopping at a fast food restaurant. Maybe we change while we're driving home. Maybe we change where we go. Maybe we take a left to avoid McDonald's or Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts, whatever you're into, so that way you don't have that temptation. Or understanding that there's money scripts that we have when we're younger. There's things that we have developed over time that we think are the right way because we've seen our parents did it, or things happen to us when we're younger that are still affecting our financial behaviors today. That's a big thing. Or people working with couples and they have two different money beliefs and they never talked about it because one person grew up a certain way with money and another person grew up another way with money, and now they're clashing, but they don't even understand why they're clashing. And then when you start understanding that they have these different philosophies because of the way they grew up and now they understand each other, that's when change started happening. It wasn't the numbers at first. It was understanding each other's and their behaviors and habits and why they were the way they were that started making those changes. And that's how I combined the two. There's emotions around money and there's no way around it. And we have to understand those emotions.
Yes, self-awareness is a superpower. Money's not going away, and I'm sorry to tell you, your emotions aren't going away either. So we got to address them and stop just suppressing it, because that's where it comes out in the impulsive spending or the emotional lashing out when there is a financial decision made in your household that you were not aware of, but you don't know how to be transparent in your communication around money. I may have to steal the rerouting of, your commute home and like the same temptation of the same fast food place. Tyrone, that I've worked in eating disorder care, and one of my clients struggles with binge eating disorder. It typically happens in the evening. And one of the things that I found as well is we typically have more energy or more in our daily capacity when we start the day. But going through your day, I'll just give an example of what happened with this client. This client woke up, she has chronic back pain. So that's something that's just taking her energy all throughout the day. Then she goes to work, and then after work, she's helping her elderly mother who's trying to like get to all these doctor's appointments and isn't always the most enjoyable to be around. And then she also helps her sister move into her new house. And then after that, she's just continuing to say yes to things that she doesn't want to say yes to. So on the final commute home at the end of the day, she has dinner at home, but then she sees a fast food place. She doesn't have the energy left to resist the impulsive thoughts because she spent the whole day saying yes to so many things while neglecting herself. So I've just been working with her, or I work with my clients, of addressing where your daily capacity is at, so that at the end of the day, if you are being challenged by habits that may not be in your favor, that you have that energy left for yourself at the end of the day to really invest back into yourself and continue with your habit regeneration. But just take a different route home also can be very helpful for just like a micro thing that you can do to gain momentum in being able to make the win in the decision at the end of the day.
I love the work that you're doing because there's a lot of money that's spent towards eating. So I work with so many individuals, hundreds of individuals at this time, and the number one category that people tend to overspend in is dining out. It's usually triple what people think they're spending
Mm-hmm.
on food and
Mm-hmm.
dining out. And it's such a major part that we can control, but we can make changes, but it's tough. It's an area that people struggle with. And that's why I really like the work that you're doing when it comes to eating disorders and trying to figure out how to help people, because it's a major part of our society that we can try to do better at.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I've really been extensively writing about, after the research I did on eating disorders and financial strain, of developing the term called disordered consumption. And you have a more extensive career and experience in regards to the financial space and with financial therapy, and you're bringing me right along with you. But what I'm wondering, Tyrone, is where you see mindful consumption come up throughout your different interactions in the field. And that goes for both food and money. Like, where can we engage in more mindful consumption? Or maybe where do people struggle to really address it?
It's different areas, but if people find it tough, like social interactions, they make plans to hang out with people, and there's usually food involved when you're going to hang out with people. And that I've seen people get help from, or a trick that they use. One person I was working with decided to eat before they went, and maybe they just get a drink. But it's basically planning. You know things are going to happen, and trying to plan ahead of time to make better decisions is basically the way to try to get around it. But if we just like go with the flow and just go with life, we tend to just buy things and spend things because you just have these cravings, or you have, I mean, there's so much sugar and fat that kind of draws us to these things. And you just desire them so much that you just, if you don't come up with a plan ahead of time, you're going to fall into those same cycles that you usually do. So if you can try to, hey, maybe bring a bar with you, some type of Nutri-Grain bar or something before you drive home, that may help, right? Because now you're not as hungry. Eating or not being hungry when you go to the grocery store, so you're not buying the junk. You're not hungry, and then you're putting all the stuff on your cart. Being proactive and allow your decisions and plans before you go into these situations is what really helps.
Very well said. Very well said. Yeah, proactive preparation pushes progress. And
Yes.
I know a lot of people who are like, oh yeah, I'll just go with the flow. Like, yeah, there's a new hangout happening. And we're not saying there's anything wrong with buying food or going with the flow. But if you
Mhm.
have a repetitive habit, such as buying more food than you want, eating super late at night and having cravings, it's about understanding the interconnectedness of the different experiences you have because we're social beings. It's very healthy to be social. But like Tyrone said, you were like, there's typically food involved. So, how can I prepare myself so that my brain isn't seeking those immediate hits of dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin that come from higher sugar, higher fat content products? Nothing wrong with having those things, but maybe there's something I could have that is more in favor of giving back to my body in the way I'm seeking prior to the social event. It's a really tough cycle. So, I love those proactive tips that you offered.
There's such a link between food and finances. Even when you get down to the preparations and things were involved in finance and food, for example, if I'm trying to be healthy when it comes to finances, you save money kind of plan and stuff. The same thing happens when it comes to foods. And also, I guess the biggest thing I want people to take away from this is yes, I want you to eat some of the things you enjoy, right? But too much of anything could be bad. Too much spending could be bad. Too much of sugary, fatty foods could be bad. It's just so many times we pop things in our mouth, like we're at big places at work, right? They bring donuts. You might not even like donuts like that. I know you're like, who doesn't like donuts? But you might not even like donuts, but you just pick it up because it's there. There's so many times throughout the day where there's food available and you just pick it up and put it in your mouth and you're not even thinking about it. And all I'm trying to say, even with finances, spend your money where you really want to spend your money at, the things you actually enjoy, and cut back the things you don't really care about. Same thing with food. Don't just put anything in your mouth. Financially too. Like don't put anything in your mouth. In moderation, eat the things that you actually enjoy, not things you don't care about. And then the other times, try to eat better foods if you can. But everything's great. Everything's good in moderation. And as long as we plan for it financially and with foods and stuff, we make plans of preparation. That's when we're gonna get the best outcomes and can still
Yes.
enjoy life.
Yes, I hear you, Tyrone. I'm low key like a super introvert. Like I love being a homebody, but I've also
Me too.
found, yeah, like I found so much energy in socializing and networking with like-minded people. But one thing, being in these different experiences of, oh, people are eating this or they're buying this or what's the norm so that I also feel involved in this social setting. I work to stay mindful in my consumption, no matter what it is, by asking myself, for example, if it's money, I ask myself, if I couldn't tell anybody about this purchase or show anybody this purchase, would I actually do it? Would I actually buy it if I could not show or tell anybody about it? And that just goes into, am I doing this to show off or to elevate my social status by purchasing this thing to look better? Or is it actually for me? And then, same thing with food. If I'm at a social setting and it's food that I don't really want, am I just eating it just to please the environment and make, we've all been in those situations at family where
Yep.
we're like, we have to eat this. But I'm talking like,
Right.
yeah, you're at the office, you see everybody else buying donuts, or you're that friend at the dinner and you don't want to buy a huge dinner. Like maybe you just get
Yep.
an appetizer. And it's been challenging because sometimes I've been like, oh, Jay, like, why aren't you buying more? Why aren't you eating this? It's a constant skill and habit to build, and that starts with asking, if nobody else was involved in this decision, would I actually be making it for me?
Yep, absolutely. I agree. And I want to go back to the shopping because I almost share with the world. I loved Amazon. I used to love getting packaged when Amazon was getting popular. This was like 2011, 2012. I was getting boxes at my house. This is years it was like this. I was getting boxes. It felt like Christmas every day. I used to just love open up my door and seeing a box there and there was a gift. And I had to control my spending because it was getting out of control. I had to control my spending. I had an Amazon card, I'm just racking it up. So what I started doing was I was like, hold on, I'm getting stuff that I don't even care about. What can I do to help myself control my spending? What I do now when I think of something, when something pops in my mind, on my phone, I'm on the Amazon app, I put the item in my save items cart. So I save the item, I put it there, and I'll wait and I'll see if I want it later, like 7 days later. If I want it 7 days later, then I'll really see if I have the money for it and I'll go ahead and purchase it. But most of the time, I'll have items just sitting there and I forgot about them. Like, and I'm like, delete. delete. I don't even care about this anymore. But if we're just shopping, especially they make it so easy. You just one click buy on Amazon and you're just buying things and then you get the packages and you got all these packages. You start forgetting what's even coming in because you don't bought so many things sometimes. I was there. What I did was, like you said, is do I really want this? Same thing when you go out. Do I really want this? You go to all your friends at work are meeting up at a Mexican spot. You don't even like Mexican food. Do you really want to buy it if you don't even like it? Just to fit in. You got to really think about these things. And same things with buying things. Put them in a cart. See if you really want it before you purchase them.
Mhm. Oh, I had to keep myself muted during that because finessers, I was laughing because Tyrone, you were like, it's like you're in like Amazon Anonymous, where you're like, I'm Tyrone. Hi, Tyrone.
Yeah.
I was addicted to Amazon.
Yeah. I was an Amazon addict. Yeah.
Yeah, that's hilarious. The visualization of all the boxes and it being Christmas. I am happy for the joy it brought you, but I'm also happy to hear that you were like, this doesn't have longevity to it. So how can I
Yes.
make an adjustment? And that's a really, really good technique. Yeah, like I've heard of different modes of that, of like the 24-hour rule, like leaving it in your
Hmm.
cart for 24 hours, things like that. So for all you other Amazon addicts out there, we have recovered one right here. His contact will be in the show notes, but thank you for sharing that, Tyrone. That's
No
hilarious.
problem.
One other thing I'd thought of, when you mentioned the one-click convenience of
Hmm.
purchasing things, now you can even look at a picture online, like on Google, and tap on it and tap on the shirt somebody's wearing, and it'll show you where to buy it. It's
Goodness.
just like, it's so intricate and in depth. And I think it's a little bit predatory because we tend to be in different emotional states when we're navigating different things online. Part of disordered consumption is I like to break down different components of it. And when you mentioned that one click convenience, I thought we are consumers of convenience. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Convenience and also emotion. So I had an app. So there's so many good apps out there, but I had an app that somebody referred to me, and it was basically track my emotions. And I didn't realize how much my emotions changed throughout the day on various things that I did. And that plays such a huge part when it comes to eating and spending. You have these ups and downs, these flows throughout the day, and really understanding yourself and your emotions can help you in so many different areas, food and finances, when you can try to, like we talked about earlier, developing some type of plan for yourself because it just plays such a huge part in a lot of our decision making. And the only way to get in control of these things is to understand yourself emotionally.
Yes, excellent point. One of the clinical practices I work at, we're very intentional about educating our clients that emotions have an average duration of 90 seconds before another emotion funnels in, and another emotion, or the original emotion comes back. And that goes into the equation that emotions plus experiences equal feelings. And feelings are what can endure for the rest of the day, the week, month, year. It comes from the combination of your emotions and experiences. So if we're riding solely on the roller coaster of what our emotions can be, that's what leads to more impulsivity or negative reinforcement of habits that we're trying to break.
Yeah, and that's another thing, right? Is a lot of men are like, "Oh, I'm not supposed to have emotions." It's like you do. You're having emotions, and it's driving a lot of your purchases. When you're buying tools, you got that. You're at work, and a tool truck pops up, and you're buying tools. There's emotions behind that's driving you purchasing those tools. There might be peer pressure from other people purchasing tools. Emotions are driving your decisions. It's not just I don't want to, because some men just think it's a woman thing. Emotion, no, it's all of us. We're having emotions and it's driving our decisions. And it's important for us to understand it. I really want to put that out there.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Tyrone. And I'm wondering what kind of resistance you've experienced in bringing that awareness to people that, hey, there are emotions associated with your financial health, particularly with men, too. Where's the resistance in regards to educating people on that?
I think the society for so long has told men they're not allowed to have emotions, that they should hide them, suppress them. And it's like, I'm not saying that you should go out there and just cry all day or something like that. I'm not trying to say that, but I think it's important to acknowledge your emotions and understand how it's affecting your decisions. because pretending that you don't have any is not going to help you. And I think that's the biggest resistance is a lot of society has viewed men in a certain light, whether it comes to income, security, or emotions. And it's like there's so many different things, there's so many changes that we're making, society's changing, but also us understanding our emotions as men, as people too. I'm specifically talking about men, but as people, when we understand we're able to take control and guide ourselves down a path that we want our lives to reflect. And that's the biggest thing that I'm trying to promote to everyone. I work with CPAs where they're great managing the company's finances, accountants, they're great at figuring out the numbers at a different company, right? The business numbers, they're great at it. And then when it comes to their finances are a mess and they don't understand, they're like, Tyrone, I don't understand why I can manage millions of dollars. And then when it comes to my money, it's a mess. And I'm like, because you don't have feelings about the company's money, you have feelings about your money.
Oh,
And that's the biggest
shoot.
difference.
Oh, shoot. Dang. That's deep. You're calling them out.
I just gotta be honest. That's the biggest difference is when you're deciding, when you're working with your money and your wife wants to buy a new dinner table because theirs is old and you don't really have the money right now. It's hard for you to say no. It
Mm,
may be hard for you to say no. So then you go ahead and buy it and put it on credit card. There's feelings around the whole family dynamic that is affecting your money at home that is not affecting during business. You can say, hey, we don't have the money when it comes to business. But if your kid wants an item, you're struggling to say no to your kid, which is affecting the finances because
yeah.
there's feelings around that money. I mean, you feel like you're deprived as a kid from certain things and you don't want to do it for your kids, but now you're going to adapt to give your kids things they didn't have. There's feelings around, there's emotions around the money, and that's the difference between you working at the business and handling their money, and then working with your personal money as a family.
That is so telling. I'm like shook by that. Just because I appreciate the honesty and compassionate accountability that I can tell you really genuinely administer in the work that you do. Because I'm thinking about people in my life who are very successful on paper vocationally and financially vocationally, but in their home life and home expenses, they don't know why they can't seem to stay organized in their
Hmm.
relational and financial wealth. And it's because the two are interconnected by emotions. So
Yes.
that is so, so telling. Thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, I really hope if anyone missed that, definitely rewind like 90 seconds to 2 minutes because that was powerful. It sounds like there's definitely an element of transparency that needs to be achieved in order to really engage with these different principles that can help us maintain and build a abundantly fulfilled life. What role does transparency play in reducing financial tension within a family or a relationship?
Transparency is key because it builds trust. Without transparency, you can't have trust. And trust is just going to be the cornerstone of any relationship, friendship, marriage, whatever type of relationship you have, there has to be trust involved. So that transparency also helps you get on the same page. When you're able to go to the person and provide that transparency, it's weight off your shoulders. The other person understands, it gives the other person to know where you're at. And then you can hopefully communicate and get on the same page and create goals together to move forward. That's when you see the biggest change when there's transparency and then you start working to create this plan for a beautiful life together that you both want to see for the future. And that's when things become really powerful. There's nothing like it. That's the biggest thing that I love about my work that I do is when I work with couples and they're starting to create their goals together and they're starting to see the light and they're starting to see a beautiful future together and they're seeing how their differences can now be a strength, whether one person wants to live for the now and the other person wants to save money for the future, because it really comes down to a balance. And that transparency creates that balance and that unity. And that's why I do what I do. That's why I love what I do, is when I see that all come together.
Yeah. Transparency compounds trust. And
Yes.
man, when you said that piece about how transparency is the key to trust and longevity in the relationships we're building, it's so uncomfortable, but once you get past that barrier of just being transparent, we can trust that we're genuine and true in our needs, and then we want to help each other even more in
Yes.
regards to building that.
Yes. And I agree with that. I think if you're transparent and you really have friends, the friends They may think it's odd, and that's fine, but then they'll support you. It's okay to get that judgment that they think you're a little different, and sometimes it's good to be a little bit different in your thinking and what you do. But if they're really friends and you're being transparent, they're going to support you. I think right now they have something called loud budgeting. I'm trying to get into all these different things. But yeah, just being honest and upfront about what you're doing, there's so much power in that. And that's what we're talking about. The transparency part is what creates the power. Yeah, you're saying it, but it's because people now know what you're doing, and now you feel free to do what you plan to do. And people now understand it. So you don't have to hide it and spend money where you don't want to spend it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear you. And I want to also touch on before we close out this episode, for those that are listening, remember back at the beginning when Tyrone was talking about how his experiences in the military and then the social dynamics he had to battle in regards to being quote unquote dependent on his wife. That pissed me off when you said that guy said that to you. So,
Yeah.
but what I'm getting at here is that you shared with us how you understood the value of discomfort because that's where growth happens. You weren't running
Yes.
away from the discomfort. So what I want to acknowledge is that, look, life gotta hustle, life is work, and it's been like that since the beginning of time. Work looks different compared to 1,000 years ago, compared to 100, compared to now. But the common theme is that we're always going to be at a level of discomfort, especially even when it's socially. So the fact that you're already uncomfortable, maybe instead of running away from it or suppressing it and trying to conform to your environment and societal standards, maybe you lean into that discomfort in a different way to breed more transparency and trust in our communication styles, which is actually how real change happens.
I couldn't have said it better myself. That was great. And I think that's a great message for everyone to really receive, because everything we decide to do is going to be uncomfortable. Getting your finances in order is going to be uncomfortable. Talking to your fiance, your spouse, or whatever about financial decisions you made in the past that you want to correct, it may be uncomfortable, but that's when we're going to see growth. You're not going to see growth without being uncomfortable at first.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Tyrone, last question I have for you, which I'm sad because I'm like, we could just continue this conversation. This is so fun. If there is one mindset shift you wish people could make about finances and relationships, what would it be?
I want people to understand that there's emotions around money. To try to understand your emotions around money, so that way you can show up for yourself and the people you care about. When you really take the time to reflect on decisions you're making, your emotions, and be honest with yourself, that's when you're going to start making the biggest changes just all around when it comes to finances. But you'll start to see it in other areas in your life as well. And that's the biggest thing. I think we as a society have made emotions, or trying to talk about emotions or reflecting on our emotions, a negative thing. And if you start to really understand your emotions, you can start to make really big, powerful changes in your life. And that's what I really want to leave people with.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Finance, Fitness, and Finesse. If you enjoyed this episode, take action and share this episode and tell your friends, you're not woke, you're broke. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Stay tuned for more episodes where we continue to build your wealth with wellness, 5 reps at a time. I'm JaeVic, and I'll see you in the next episode. Until next time, don't forget to visit JaeVic.com. Be sure to keep finessing, and if you don't know, now you know. Disclaimer, this podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial or mental health advice. Always seek professional guidance tailored to your personal needs.